You've said it before, this time will be different. But you and I both know, talk doesn't build a new life. Discipline does. Clarity does. Doing what you said you'd do, even when no one's watching, that's what changes everything. This audiobook is not about motivation. It's about execution. The gap between who you are and who you want to be isn't time, it's alignment. Today you stop making promises. Today you become the person who keeps them. Chapter 1. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. You've been waiting for the right time, the right conditions, the right level of confidence. But let me tell you something that most people never want to hear. The perfect moment doesn't exist. It never did. And the longer you wait for it, the further you drift from the life you could already be living. You think you need more information. You think you need to feel ready. But readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. You decide you're ready by starting. Not by thinking about starting. Not by preparing to start. But by doing the thing that scares you right now. That's the key. Every person you admire, every person you call successful, started before they were ready. They didn't wait for certainty. They created it. Because here's the truth, clarity doesn't come from thinking. Clarity comes from action. You can't figure out your path by standing still. You find your direction by walking. You learn by doing. You grow by moving. Start now. Adjust later. Say it again. Start now. Adjust later. That's how you build momentum. The people who wait for perfect never get started. They live their lives planning, hesitating, preparing, but never creating. They say, when I have more time, I'll start. When I have more money, I'll begin. When I'm more confident, I'll finally go for it. But here's the truth, those things don't come before you start. They come because you start. You build confidence through repetition. You gain clarity through trial and error. You earn time and opportunity by moving forward, not standing still. You have a choice. Every single day you face the same decision. Do I wait for the perfect moment or do I act on the imperfect one I have? That's it. That's the dividing line between growth and stagnation. Think of every major breakthrough in your life. None of them happened when everything was convenient. They happened because you pushed through uncertainty. Because you acted when it was uncomfortable. Because you refused to let hesitation decide your future. You don't need another plan. You don't need another guarantee. You need movement. That's the secret that nobody tells you. Movement creates motivation. Action breeds clarity. Momentum creates confidence. The ones who win aren't the ones who waited for everything to line up. They're the ones who moved while it was still messy. So stop waiting for things to feel right. Stop waiting for permission. You don't need their approval. You don't need anyone to tell you you're ready. You don't need their permission. You need your own decision. Think about it. When you first learned to walk, you didn't wait to feel confident. You fell. You stumbled. You got back up. That's how you learn balance. That's how you learn strength. The same rule applies now. You don't need to know everything. You just need to take the next step. Start writing the first paragraph. Make the first phone call. Show up to the first workout. Whatever it is, start. You have been overthinking your life into paralysis. You're trying to plan your way out of fear. But fear doesn't disappear with planning. Fear disappears with movement. Every time you act, fear loses its grip. Every time you hesitate, fear tightens its hold. That's the game. And you're the one in control of the next move. Start now. Adjust later. Let that become your mantra. Say it out loud when doubt creeps in. Say it when your mind tries to delay. Say it when you're tempted to wait for the right time. There is no right time. There's only now, and what you choose to do with it. You don't need perfection. You need momentum. Momentum beats motivation every time. Because motivation fades. Emotion shifts. But momentum carries you when you no longer feel like it. That's why so many people fail to follow through. They chase feelings instead of movement. They wait to feel ready when readiness was never required. Here's the truth, you'll never feel completely ready. And that's okay. The most powerful people in the world are those who act in spite of doubt. They don't wait for courage, they practice courage. You have a choice. Keep waiting for certainty. Or start walking toward it. Every step you take is proof that you can trust yourself. And that's how confidence is built, not from knowing everything but from trusting you'll handle whatever comes. You've been conditioned to believe that waiting equals wisdom, that patience means preparation. But in reality, waiting is often fear disguised as logic. Your mind will tell you, just one more week, just one more course, just one more plan. But 1 week becomes 1 month, 1 month becomes 1 year, and suddenly you're living the same story you promised to change. The people who change their lives don't wait for guarantees. They create momentum and learn as they go. They make mistakes, but they correct fast. They fail forward. You have that same power. You just forgot you do. So here's your challenge. Whatever you've been delaying, start it today. Not tomorrow. Not after you figure it out. Today. Take one step. Send one message. Make one move. And then adjust later. That's how every transformation begins. That's how every promise becomes real. You don't need perfection, you need progress. You don't need confidence, you need consistency. You don't need luck, you need discipline. That's the key. Start now. Adjust later. Because the more you wait, the harder it becomes to believe in your own potential. And the moment you stop waiting, the world starts responding. Action speaks louder than thought. Movement speaks louder than hesitation. Execution speaks louder than intention. The perfect moment is not coming. The perfect moment is now, because it's the only one that exists. So take it, own it, move with it. You've waited long enough. It's time to stop promising. It's time to start becoming. You mastered the art of beginning. Now it's time to master the power of repetition. Chapter 2. You are what you repeatedly do. Who you are is not defined by what you intend to do. It's defined by what you repeat. Every day you cast votes for the kind of person you're becoming. Every action, no matter how small, builds or breaks your identity. That's the truth most people ignore. They think transformation happens in big moments. It doesn't. It happens in repetition. In the small things you do when no one's watching. In the quiet choices that no one applauds. You are what you repeatedly do. That's not a slogan, it's a law. You can't think your way into a new identity. You act your way into it. You can't tell yourself, I'm disciplined, and expect your life to change. You prove you're disciplined by what you repeat, day after day, week after week. That's the key. Most people get this backward. They want results before repetition. They want transformation before consistency. But the identity always comes after the habit, not before it. A person who writes 1 paragraph a day doesn't need to call themselves an author. They become one through the act of writing. It's the repetition that transforms them. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who wanted to write a book. Every day he told himself he would start when inspiration hit. He waited for the perfect idea, the perfect setting, the perfect morning routine. Years passed. Nothing happened. One day he changed one thing. He stopped focusing on writing a book and started focusing on writing 1 paragraph a day. That's it. Just one. No pressure. No perfection. At first it felt small, almost meaningless. But within a month, that 1 paragraph became 2, then 3. Within a year, he had a full manuscript. Within 2, he had a published book. That's the power of repetition. That's the power of identity built through consistent action. He didn't become an author by dreaming. He became one by repeating. You have a choice. Every habit you repeat is either strengthening or sabotaging the person you want to be. Every repetition teaches your mind who you are. When you skip a promise to yourself, your mind notices. When you keep one, your mind notices too. You're teaching yourself something every day through what you do repeatedly. You tell yourself, I'll start working out. But if you don't repeat the action, your identity doesn't change. You tell yourself, I'll be more focused. But if you keep checking your phone every 10 minutes, your brain learns distraction instead of discipline. Repetition builds reality. That's why consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. Let that sink in. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. It's not about how hard you go once. It's about who you become because you show up every time. The gym hero who trains once a month with passion doesn't transform. The quiet, consistent lifter who shows up 3 times a week does. Because their actions reinforce a belief. I'm the kind of person who follows through. That's identity. That's self-trust. That's power. You don't need to prove anything to anyone else. You need to prove it to yourself, through repetition. Every time you keep a small promise, you rebuild self-trust. Every time you break one, you weaken it. Your habits are conversations with your future. So let's be real. You can't expect results from the work you didn't repeat. You can't expect confidence from the actions you didn't sustain. Change doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do relentlessly. Every time you act with discipline, you tell your mind, this is who I am now. And the mind starts to believe it. That's the key. That's why habits are powerful. They rewrite identity silently. Think about brushing your teeth. You don't debate whether to do it. It's part of who you are. Automatic. Non-negotiable. That's how discipline should feel. You don't try to be consistent. You become someone who doesn't negotiate consistency. Consistency is freedom. It frees you from decision fatigue. It frees you from emotional swings. It frees you from self-doubt. Because when you show up over and over again, your brain stops questioning whether you can. It just knows you will. That's the level of identity you want to reach, where your habits no longer depend on mood, where action becomes your default. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. Say it again. Consistency is not about intensity, it's about identity. The person who runs once in anger will never outlast the person who runs daily in silence. The person who studies only when motivated will never outperform the one who studies as a standard. It's not about the size of your effort. It's about the stability of your effort. One drop of water doesn't shape a rock, but 1,000 drops over time carve through stone. Your life is the same. Your habits are those drops. Each repetition leaves a mark until your identity shifts. You have a choice today. Keep chasing bursts of effort or start living with rhythm. Stop being intense for a week and start being consistent for a lifetime. You don't need to do more. You need to do less but more often. That's how transformation happens. Remember the writer who wrote 1 paragraph a day? You can apply that principle anywhere. 1 page a day turns into a book. 1 workout a day turns into strength. 1 act of discipline a day turns into character. Repetition builds results. Consistency builds confidence. And confidence builds identity. That's the formula. Simple, solid, repeatable. So, if you want to change your life, stop focusing on intensity. Focus on who you become through what you repeat. Because every small, silent action is shaping the story you tell yourself. Every repetition is a vote for the person you're becoming. You are not your intentions. You are your habits. You are what you repeatedly do. And the best part? You can choose differently right now. Start with 1 small thing today. 1 act you can repeat tomorrow. Then another the day after that. Stack them. Keep them. Let them build your new identity from the ground up. You don't need perfection. You need pattern. You don't need hype. You need habit. You don't need intensity. You need identity. That's the key. You've built consistency into your life. Now it's time to build control over it. You've learned to act regularly. Now let's make sure those actions align with your purpose. Chapter 3. Stop proving and start doing. You've been trying to look productive, trying to look consistent, trying to look like you're making progress. But here's the truth. Looking productive is not the same as being productive. And every time you chase validation, you trade progress for applause. You post your goals online. You talk about your next move. You share your plans with everyone who will listen. But talking about the work has replaced doing the work. You've convinced yourself that noise equals movement. It doesn't. You don't need applause. You need progress. Say it again. You don't need applause. You need progress. The more you seek validation, the less energy you have for execution. Because every ounce of your focus goes toward being seen instead of being effective. You have a choice. Do you want to look like you're changing? Or do you want to actually change? That's the difference between pretending and becoming. Between performing and progressing. You see it everywhere. People announcing new goals, new habits, new plans. They say, I'm about to start this business. I'm going to get in shape. I'm working on something big. But months later, nothing's changed. because the energy they spent proving their ambition could have been used building their results. It's not about proving. It's about doing. It's not about appearance. It's about alignment. Every time you talk about what you're going to do, your brain releases a little hit of satisfaction, like you've already achieved something. That's the trap. You feel accomplished without accomplishing anything. And that feeling keeps you stuck. You don't need applause. You need progress. You don't need likes. You need discipline. You don't need attention. You need action. When you stop chasing validation, you start chasing mastery. When you stop trying to look the part, you start becoming the part. The ones who really change their lives are usually quiet about it. They don't talk. They build. They don't post. They produce. They don't explain. They execute. They're too busy working on their evolution to broadcast it. Because they understand this. True transformation doesn't need an audience. You have to decide, are you building a brand or are you building a life? Because one is about image. The other is about integrity. It's easy to perform discipline. It's harder to live it. But the real power, the kind that changes your world, comes from what you do when nobody's watching. That's where identity is built. That's where trust is earned. That's where transformation begins. You have to stop proving and start doing. You don't owe anyone proof of your potential. You owe yourself proof of your progress. Every moment you spend explaining your plans to people who aren't doing the work with you, that's energy lost. Every minute you spend seeking approval, that's movement delayed. Progress is quiet. Validation is loud. Choose quiet. Choose growth over noise. You have a choice. You can either look successful or you can become successful, but you cannot do both at the same time. The people who actually win are too focused on the mission to explain the method. They let their results speak for them. They understand, the world doesn't remember what you said you would do. It remembers what you did. That's the key. Stop measuring your life by what others notice. Start measuring it by what you finish. You don't need to look busy. You need to be intentional. You don't need to be loud. You need to be consistent. You don't need applause. You need progress. There's a story of a man who announced online that he was writing a book. Every week, he updated his followers about his journey. He spent hours designing posts about creativity, mindset, and productivity. He felt important. He felt productive. But years passed, and the book never came. Then there was another writer, quiet, unseen, focused. He didn't talk about it. He wrote. Every day. One page at a time. No updates. No validation. No performance. And one day, while the first man was still posting, the second man finished. That's the difference. The first man built an image. The second built a result. You don't need applause. You need progress. Because progress will always outlast perception. You can't buy integrity. You can't fake consistency. You can't pretend mastery. You can only earn them through repetition. Every time you chase attention, you lose direction. Every time you look outward, you lose focus inward. If you want to change your life, you have to fall in love with invisible work. The kind no one sees. The kind that's quiet, consistent, unglamorous. The kind that doesn't earn claps, but builds character. Because what's done in private eventually defines what's seen in public. If your private habits don't match your public claims, you'll always feel divided. You'll always feel like you're performing instead of progressing. You don't need applause. You need progress. Progress is what builds peace. Progress is what builds confidence. Progress is what builds real momentum. The truth is, people won't always see your effort. They won't always understand your silence. They might even underestimate you. Good. Let them. Silence is your advantage. Stillness is your focus. Progress doesn't need to prove itself. It just continues. You have a choice. Keep proving or start producing. Keep chasing praise or start chasing growth. The more you prove, the less you move. The more you do, the less you need to prove. That's the paradox of mastery. Real power is quiet. It doesn't announce. It doesn't demand. It just is. So stop performing for approval. Stop broadcasting every move. Stop asking the world to notice. You don't need them to notice. You need to become undeniable. You do that through discipline, through consistency, through silent execution. Let your results be the proof. Let your actions be the evidence. You don't need applause. You need progress. The day you stop chasing attention is the day you start building momentum. And once you have momentum, you no longer need motivation. That's the shift. That's the transformation. So stop proving. Start doing. And when you do, you'll finally realize you never needed the world to believe in you. You only needed to believe in yourself long enough to follow through. You've stopped proving. You started doing. Now it's time to understand what fuels the difference between motion and mastery. Chapter 4: The Discipline of Following Through. Most people think discipline is punishment. They think it's restriction. They think it's suffering. But discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect in action. It's proof that you trust yourself enough to follow through. You say you want confidence. You say you want clarity. You say you want control over your life. But you can't build any of that without discipline. Because discipline is the bridge between intention and execution. Between saying it and doing it. Between wanting it and living it. That's the truth. And most people avoid it. They confuse discipline with control. But discipline isn't control, it's alignment. It's doing what you said you would do long after the mood you said it in has faded. When you keep your word to yourself, you build self-trust. When you break it, you destroy it. That's the game. Every time you follow through, your mind learns to trust you. Every time you don't, your mind learns to doubt you. And the gap between who you are and who you want to be is filled with every broken promise you've made to yourself. You want to close that gap? Start keeping your word. That's what discipline is. Not force. Not punishment. Just the simple act of keeping your word, consistently. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. Say it again. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. That's the formula. That's the foundation. You don't rebuild your life with massive breakthroughs. You rebuild it through small daily follow-through. And to make that real, you need structure. You need what I call the 3 non-negotiables rule. Every day, no matter how busy you are, no matter how you feel, you commit to 3 small non-negotiable promises. 3 things you do no matter what. No excuses. No debate. Because that's the problem. Most people negotiate with themselves all day long. They negotiate their goals. They negotiate their time. They negotiate their standards. And every time you negotiate with yourself, you weaken your resolve. The 3 non-negotiables rule kills that negotiation. It removes the gray area. You choose 3 promises you'll keep every single day. They can be small. They should be simple. But they must be consistent. Wake up at the same time. Drink a full glass of water. Do 10 push-ups. Journal for 5 minutes. It doesn't matter what they are. What matters is that they're non-negotiable. You don't skip them because you're tired. You don't skip them because it's inconvenient. You don't skip them because no one's watching. You do them because you said you would. That's the key. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. And when you build trust with yourself, you no longer need motivation. You move because it's who you are. Discipline becomes your identity. It becomes automatic. Think about it. If you can't trust yourself to do small things, how can you trust yourself with big ones? If you can't show up for the little habits, how will you ever show up for your mission? You want to master your life? Start mastering your follow-through. Because that's where most people fail, not in their ideas but in their consistency. They start strong. They make promises. Then emotion fades. Life gets busy. And discipline disappears. But the ones who win understand this. Emotion doesn't decide action. Commitment does. When you rely on emotion, you'll quit. When you rely on discipline, you'll continue. That's the difference. Discipline doesn't care if you feel like it. Discipline doesn't need a mood check. Discipline just executes. You don't need to enjoy it. You just need to do it. You don't need applause. You just need follow-through. And every time you follow through, you get stronger. Every small promise kept sends a message to your mind, I can rely on me. That's the foundation of self-confidence, self-reliance. You can't be confident in someone you don't trust. And right now, the person you need to rebuild trust with is you. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. You want to know why you don't believe in yourself sometimes? It's not because you're weak. It's because you've heard yourself make too many promises you didn't keep. Every time you say, "I'll start tomorrow," and you don't, your brain takes note. Remembers? It stores that data as truth. But every time you do what you said you would do, even if it's small, you rewire that belief. You show yourself evidence that you can be trusted. That's discipline. That's the secret to transformation. Not big leaps. Not grand gestures. Small, consistent follow-through. You have to treat discipline like a muscle. You don't build it once. You strengthen it daily. The more you practice, the stronger it becomes. The more you act on your word, the less effort it takes. Eventually, following through becomes who you are. You don't think about it. You just do it. Because it's no longer an option. It's identity. That's what this book is about, becoming the person you keep promising to be. And discipline is the foundation of that transformation. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. And the best part? You don't need anyone else to see it. You don't need validation for it. You don't need applause. Because every time you keep a promise, your reward is internal. You feel peace. You feel pride. You feel progress. That's the reward discipline gives you, the quiet satisfaction of knowing you're living in alignment with your word. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. But it's powerful. And over time, those small promises become your proof. Proof that you're reliable. Proof that you're consistent. Proof that you can be trusted with more. You want bigger opportunities? Prove you can handle small responsibilities. You want more freedom? Prove you can manage structure. You want respect? Start by respecting your own word. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. That's how confidence grows. That's how identity shifts. That's how your life changes. So right now, make your list of 3 non-negotiables. They don't need to impress anyone. They just need to matter to you. Keep them every single day, no matter how small, no matter how ordinary. Because every time you do, you remind yourself, I am the kind of person who follows through. That's the mindset that separates dreamers from doers. That's the difference between trying and becoming. Discipline isn't punishment, it's self-respect in action. It's not restriction, it's freedom through reliability. You don't need willpower. You need follow-through. You don't need perfection. You need consistency. You don't need motivation. You need commitment. When you keep small promises, you build big trust. And when you build that trust, nothing is out of reach, because you finally believe yourself when you say, I will. You've learned to follow through. Now it's time to face the biggest threat to that progress, the excuses that disguise themselves as logic. Chapter 5. The enemy is the excuse. Every excuse sounds reasonable. Every excuse sounds logical. Every excuse sounds smart. But your excuses are not protecting you, they're trapping you. They sound good. They sound safe. They sound rational. But every excuse you keep costs you a piece of your identity. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. Say it again. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. That's the truth most people never want to face. Because excuses feel comfortable. They let you stay still and still feel justified. They give you permission to stop trying, without guilt. But comfort is a liar. And every time you choose comfort, you pay for it with potential. You tell yourself, it's not the right time. I'm too busy. I'll start when things calm down. And all of it sounds smart. It sounds like you're being strategic. But you're not being strategic, you're being scared. Your excuses aren't protecting you from failure. They're protecting you from responsibility. Because if you take responsibility, you lose your excuse. And once you lose your excuse, you have to act. That's the real reason you hold on to them. Not because you can't do it, but because you don't want to face the truth that you could, if you stopped hiding behind reasons. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. Think about it. Every major breakthrough you've ever had came from the moment you stopped explaining your situation and started owning your choices. The mind is clever. It will rationalize anything to keep you comfortable. It will tell you that rest is self-care when it's actually avoidance. It will tell you to wait for clarity when you already know what to do. It will convince you that fear is logic. That's how excuses survive. They disguise themselves as reason. And the smarter you are, the better your excuses sound. You can talk yourself out of anything. You can intellectualize your stagnation. You can build a case for inaction so convincing that you'll believe it yourself. But here's what happens. The logic wins, but your life doesn't move. You stay stuck, but it feels justified. You feel right, but you don't feel alive. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. You have a choice. You can keep being right, or you can start being real. Because those two rarely happen at the same time. Real growth doesn't come from defending your limits. It comes from destroying them. And you can't destroy what you keep protecting with excuses. That's the key. Excuses defend comfort. Discipline builds character. It's not about what sounds smart. It's about what gets results. You can't logic your way into a new life. You can only act your way into it. And you already know this. Every time you've made progress, it's because you stopped overthinking and started moving. You stopped negotiating. You stopped explaining. You just acted. That's when things changed. You don't need another reason. You need responsibility. You don't need another explanation. You need execution. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. Let me give you a picture. There's a man sitting on a couch, scrolling through his phone. He tells himself he's tired. He deserves a break. He says he'll start tomorrow. He says, I just need to get my motivation back. He's not lazy. He's logical. At least that's what he tells himself. But a year later, he's in the same place, same routine, same frustration, same results. And all those smart excuses that made sense at the time, they built a cage around him. A cage made of reasons. Now imagine another person, same circumstances, same obstacles, same fears. But instead of explaining, they act. Instead of rationalizing, they move. Instead of protecting their comfort, they pursue their growth. One person uses logic to stay the same. The other uses discipline to change everything. You have to decide which one you are. Because both are intelligent. Both are capable. But only one moves. The difference between a reason and an excuse is simple. A reason helps you move forward. An excuse keeps you in place. Ask yourself, is this reason helping me progress? Or is it helping me stay comfortable? You already know the answer. You feel it in your body when it's an excuse. That subtle tension. That quiet guilt. That inner whisper that says, you could have done more. Listen to it. That's not shame. That's truth trying to wake you up. Because every time you justify your limitations, you build walls around your own potential. Every time you rationalize an action, you shrink your belief in what's possible. And then you wonder why life feels smaller, quieter, duller. It's because you traded growth for justification. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. The mind loves to protect its patterns. It will argue for your limits harder than you argue for your freedom. It will tell you, you've already tried. You're too late. It's just who you are. But that's not truth. That's comfort wearing the mask of logic. And the only way to break that pattern is to act in direct opposition to it. The moment your mind says, I'll do it later, do it now. The moment it says, I'm not ready, move anyway. The moment it says, I can't, prove it wrong. Because the only cure for excuses is execution. That's the medicine. That's the power. When you act in the face of an excuse, you reclaim control. You remind your mind who's in charge. Every time you do that, you rebuild your self-respect. Every time you do that, you silence the voice that's kept you small. Because the truth is simple. The life you want doesn't need your justification. It needs your consistency. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. So stop explaining. Stop defending. Stop waiting for permission to act. You don't need another plan. You don't need another pep talk. You just need to decide that your future is more valuable than your comfort. That's it. That's the real decision that separates growth from stagnation. Your excuses have stolen enough time. They've taken enough energy. They've cost you enough opportunities. Now it's time to cut them off. Replace excuses with execution. Replace hesitation with movement. Replace comfort with commitment. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need perfect timing. You just need to do the thing you said you'd do, even when the voice in your head says, not today. That's when it matters most. Because every time you silence that voice, You strengthen the one that believes in you. Your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. Don't let them win. Don't let them write your story. Don't let them be the reason you stay halfway to who you could have been. The future doesn't belong to the person with the best plan. It belongs to the person who stopped explaining why they haven't started. So stop protecting your limits. Start protecting your growth. And when that voice tries to reason you back into safety, remind yourself, your excuses sound smart until your life stays the same. You've faced your excuses. You've stripped away the lies of comfort. Now it's time for the final challenge, to live your word every day until it becomes who you are. You've stopped waiting. You started doing. You've learned to follow through. And now it's time to become the person you keep promising to be. Because that's what this journey was always about. Not perfection but alignment. Not performance but integrity. Not promises but proof. You don't need applause. You don't need permission. You just need to begin and keep beginning. Every single day. This is your moment. Your excuses are done. Your new identity begins now.